Okay, hello everybody. Welcome. I have a very special guest and good friend of mine, Mr. Gregory Helbeck, here on the podcast, REI Uncovered. Excited to have some good, honest conversation. He is sitting right next to me right now. So no Zoom calls, no, video with this. It's just going to be straight podcast material. Greg, excited to have you in my humble abode tonight.
Thank you. Does that mean your house?
That does mean my house, my
Okay.
one-bedroom apartment in San Diego. Yes.
I'm excited to be here, man. You got a great place. I'm really honored to be sitting in your living room overlooking the mountains and beaches and everything else California has to offer.
And the apartment buildings across as well.
Yes, there is a clay roof with nice Spanish tile, so it's really nice out here.
Absolutely. I'm excited to have you back out here. So, yeah, man, I just want to dive into it, just kind of have an open conversation. I love to just people who don't know who you are. Can you just tell us a little about, you're all over the place. You got a lot of stuff going on. What are you working on these days? Yeah,
so I've been a full-time real estate entrepreneur for almost 6 years now, I think. In 2015, I got started. So I've been a full-time real estate entrepreneur for 6 full years. This is the only thing I've done. I did this out of college, made millions of dollars, honestly. That's not like a guru claim. And
we're getting the tax returns, everybody.
Yeah. I mean, that's cumulatively, obviously. But this has been my only career. So I've done over 100 deals, fix and flips, wholesale deals. Probably the majority of them are wholesale deals, about 60% of them. I own rentals now. I own some small apartment mixed use building, stuff now. Some condos, single family houses. Bought a lot of real estate virtually. I've bought in some of the hardest markets you could think of, California and New York. Yeah, tough markets I'm in. I've done a handful of houses in Texas. Actually, more than that. I've done probably 40 properties in Dallas over the course of 2.5, 3 years. Mm-hmm. That's really where I made my big money in the beginning, was in Texas. And then from there, I took that capital and was able to start deploying that in different markets, mostly New York, New Jersey area. Cool. That's really what I'm about. I make the majority of my money from doing deals. So I sell a little bit of information and consulting, but I'm not like a guru at all. And
Pave the Way podcast.
Got a podcast.
We'll get it out up front. Yeah. Just a shameless plug up front. We got the Pave the Way podcast.
Got a podcast.
What else? You got the coaching. It's like sales coaching, right?
I do a little bit of high-end sales consulting for high ticket clients. It's not for newbies or anything like that.
Yeah.
But mainly it's real estate. I mean, I love this business, quite frankly. It's a very difficult business. We'll talk about the truth tonight. But I'm very experienced, I can say, at this point. I remember in the beginning I had zero experience, and now, I've done enough deals to where I've been around the block once or twice. So I've made some big mistakes.
Yeah.
So,
dude, I'm excited to have you on, man, for sure. And everyone knows, this podcast is about the honest stories about the ups and the downs, success and the failures. And I think it's interesting. I also started in this business really in 2015. So we started, I'm a few years older than you, but basically been in the business around the same amount of time. You have gotten a lot more success in the real estate side of things than I have. That is factual, get the numbers out. That's just is the case. And I'm curious to I'm sure other people listening in who maybe have friends or they see people online and this and that, and people maybe started at the same time or later than them have seen certain success. So answer me this in as clear a way as you can. What do you think makes the difference between you, who's had as much success as you had in the last few years, versus someone maybe like myself, who's had, okay results, but maybe a little more mediocre, or someone else who hasn't had any and is struggling? What did Greg do differently?
Dude, that's a really good question.
Than Tim and everybody else?
I don't think I've ever been asked that question, the way that you asked. I'm not trying to fruit you up on your own show, but the truth of the matter...
You can do that too, it's fine.
I think the difference has been a combination of pig-headed persistence. I'm talking absolute wild boar with swine, pig-headed persistence, combined with learning from your failures. And learning when shit doesn't work out, when stuff doesn't work out. And I think having that combination has allowed me to make a lot of progress and do a lot of deals and learn very, very, very quickly. Because I'll say the pig-headed persistence, because there's everyone in this business, or any business really, mostly real estate though, there's a lot of resistance, especially when you're doing marketing to sellers. There's a lot of resistance. You're going to get told no pretty much 1 out of 10 times. You're going to get told no 9 out of 10 times. And you are going to have stuff thrown at you that you have not dealt with before. Even if you have a mentor, you're still going to go through this.
Okay.
So you have to have that persistence, but at the same time, you can't be so ignorant to your failures that you're not going to learn the lessons that are going to inevitably come from your failures. So you got to stick with it with persistence over the long haul. But in the short term, you need to know why what you're doing is not working. You have to have an accurate sense of reality and what it's going to take to move you to the next step. Okay. Because if you don't have the ability to reflect on your mistakes and ask the right questions, you're just going to be persistent and you're going to persist yourself out of business because you're going to be like, oh, I'm just going to fail. I'm going to fail. But it's like, why are you failing and how do you solve the root problem of your failure? You know what I mean? So that high level is the reason why I've been able to do pretty good in this business. Obviously, I'm not where I want to be. I don't think anyone really is where they want to be if they want to hit their potential. But from day one, I knew it was going to be a journey, and I knew that I was going to have every bone in my body committed to winning and committing to getting to my goals despite the inevitable obstacles that are going to pop up in your way. Every deal we do, there's always roadblocks.
So we'll test your memory here. Well, let's go back to the beginning. You said, you were telling me you got your break, let's say in Texas, right?
That was what changed the game. That changed my life.
Changed my life. Let's dive into that a little bit. What was the moment or the time period that you went from newbie trying to make it, maybe did a deal, maybe didn't do any deals, to there's this invisible barrier, whether it's mental or not, or just environmental or external, or whatever it is, that I feel like everyone had to go through. I had to go through it. People listening to this, everybody has went through it, but the most people have not been able to go through it, you know? And can you just explain, as very specific as you can, what that looked like for you? How did you push through it to get to the other side?
Yeah, no, that's a phenomenal question. So what ended up happening was I was doing marketing in New York, where I'm originally from.
When you first started?
Yeah, it's brand new. Okay. New York, probably the hardest one of the hardest markets from the logistical, not from a competition point, but from a logistical point with attorneys. Almost impossible there for newbies. It's possible, but it is so much harder in New York. It's just like another planet.
Did you know that when you started?
Not really. Okay. I just happened to live there.
So how did you get into it? How did you decide, I'm going to do marketing in New York?
Oh, I was living there at the time. That's where I grew up. Yep. Family is from there. And the seminar that I went to, the Guru seminar, happened to be 20 minutes from where I grew up.
You saw a seminar?
I saw the seminar, and I was like, okay, I might as well try this in the Hudson Valley because that's where I'm living. So I started doing marketing there. I was getting leads. I was not systematic at all, and I'll get into that in Texas on why it worked. And I was just kind of going out and taking, quote, a massive imperfect action, as all the gurus would say, which is a valid strategy. I mean, that's going to be better than sitting on your ass doing nothing.
Better than analysis paralysis.
Yeah, exactly. That's fortunately, I'm definitely not the smartest guy in the world, but I've always been blessed with the ready, fire, aim mentality in anything I've done, whether it was college or sports. I'm like, I'm going to figure out what I want and then find a way to get there. So anyways, doing marketing, getting leads, making offers. I really didn't know the market. I had no idea what a deal was. You could have had a deal fall in my lap and I would have been like, oh, is that a deal? I don't know. Because I didn't have experience. I didn't know anything really. So I was making offers. We were getting close on some houses, but we were running into all these problems. And when I say we, I had a partner at the time who's still a good friend of mine. And
how'd you find a partner?
We went to the seminar together.
Okay.
Typical way
so
to
he was also, he knew, do you know what he was
Didn't
doing?
know his ass from his elbow, just like me.
Both newbies.
Yeah. But this is where the difference though. He was already making money flipping quads. So he had some money in the bank. I had $2,000 in the bank. I sound like an infomercial.
So he was financing the marketing?
No, he had money, so if this didn't work out, he was fine. I had no money.
Okay.
I had $2,000 in the bank.
Gotcha.
Net worth of probably $1,000.
You maybe cared a little bit more.
I cared a lot more than he did at the time.
Okay.
And probably still do. But anyway, so I was like, dude, I need to find a way to make this work. I'm going to find a way to get this done. So we started doing marketing, getting leads, making offers, kind of fumbling through deals. I ended up splitting with him on the partner side because we were just doing all this work and we were starting to see results. But I didn't want to split the profits with him because he wasn't doing as much work as I was doing. So I'm like, I don't want to give you half of the profit on this house because you didn't do anything.
So you got a deal and you're like, it was all this work and I just made half of what.
Yeah. And I'm like, and I eventually talked to him. I said, dude, I don't want to do this partner thing because I can just do this on my own. I know how to do this now. I don't know what I'm doing. There's a big difference there.
Okay.
And anyway, so I did a few wholesale deals. I made probably $15,000.
And that's still, even getting to that point, I'm sure some people are like,
in a hard market, in a very hard market.
That is a success. I'm sure people would love to get to that point. Even
that was hard.
Okay, but you did it. So let's even just that. I know there's like a lot more to the story here, but even that part of it, like, how did you get it? Is it just you had partnered with someone who had money, and you just? I mean, how much money does it cost to get a $15,000 deal?
I was handwriting letters, so I had a printer. And I was handwriting the envelopes. I had printed out the actual learned
letter. From the seminar.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, and podcasts and all that. And so I was handwriting the envelopes, and I sent out a tax delinquent mailer to the tax delinquent list in my county. And this guy called me. And this is like the third deal, but like the one that actually this 15. Like I made $15,000, and then I made $15,000 on one deal. So now we're at like $30,000 in like income from this business.
And how much do you think you spent with that?
Probably like $5,000.
Okay.
If I had to guess.
That's pretty good.
Probably like $5,000. Yeah. So I was like a little profitable, but I was still in college. I still was living in my parents' house. I still didn't have any liquidity or I had no net worth or anything like that. Like zero assets.
I think this is a good point to make, and is probably a theme across your whole story is like, you're talking like, oh yeah, I just spent $5,000, I got a deal. I talked to so many people.
Yeah, but that's over like the course of a year though.
That's fine.
Yeah. But that was not a month.
I think there's a lot of people out there who are like, $5,000, like I'm trying to get into wholesaling because I don't have to put money out, like
that's not how it works.
It's just, it's just like so obvious.
That's not how it works.
And I'm sure a lot of people listening, they're like, duh, but like you just kind of glossed over, like, oh yeah, you spend as much money as you need to. Like you spend $5,000 without necessarily hesitating. Okay, it was $500 a month, which is doable, but that's still like a lot of money, and that is, I think, a barrier that the newbies can't get over. Like they're not even willing to spend $5,000. They send out 100 direct mail, and they start complaining on Facebook why they're not getting deals. So anyway, to get your first deal, like you had to shell out a few $1,000s without any proof that it was going to work.
There was no certainty that it was going to work.
But you are
I knew it was going to work. There was no certainty, but I knew. I honestly, I'll be straight up with you. The day I was in the seminar, I knew I was going to be a millionaire. I knew I was going to be a winner. And I'm not like trying to flex but I knew at my core who I am and who my identity is. And I'm like, I'm going to be a real estate investor, and I'm going to be very successful. And I was like convicted at that seminar. I was going to fucking win big time.
To me, that means persistent, like the most persistent you could possibly be.
I was going to win no matter what.
Even if you spent $50,000 to get your first deal, you would have did it.
I would have done it, yeah. Right. But unfortunately, that didn't happen.
Right.
Yeah, that would have been interesting. I would have had to really be a doofus to spend $50,000 and not get a deal. Even in like California, it'd be hard to not get a deal. But anyway, so I did that. This guy called me, and we ended up doing a wholesale deal. I made, if I had that house now, I would have made $150 on it if I knew it. I mean, I literally gave the house away to my friend for $15,000 assignment fee. He flipped it for $85,000, and I was powerless. Right. I don't blame him. You can't count other people's money. So anyway, did that. Started doing some deals every couple months in New York, making $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 a pop. And then
that's good.
It was decent, but I was kind of treading water. Like I was spending money. I didn't have enough money to like move out of my parents' house. I was still in college. I was still, I didn't have any overhead.
You weren't netting six figs.
No.
Right.
No, not even, not even close. No. So what ended up happening, to answer your question, so I was spinning my wheels in New York, and I've kept running into like the sales cycle in New York takes forever because of these attorneys. It's very hard to logistically do these deals because like there's bureaucratic towns and violations. Just a very hard market for new people. Extremely difficult. And I said, what if I did this in another market that was not as crazy as New York in terms of the logistics? And I said, I don't have enough money to do direct mail in Texas, but I discovered this guy named Larry Higgins, Skip Genie, and he was talking about, I'm a good friend of mine today, and I still use his service, Skip Genie. It's phenomenal for skip tracing. And he was talking about, instead of mailing people, just calling vacant houses. This is before cold calling was popular. This is before list stacking existed. This is like literally no one was doing this except for like me and Larry.
Yeah, it's like, why a cold call when you can send a postcard?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Now I'd rather have them call me, but like 50 of those deals later. But basically, he started talking about how to systematically go after these vacant, distressed properties, anywhere in the country. And I picked, honestly, Texas randomly. I'm like, let me just try this in Dallas. There's enough people living in Dallas to where I'm sure there's enough of these leads that I can target.
Completely random.
Literally random. Yeah. I'm not even kidding. Like, okay. He lived in Houston. I'm like, I don't want to compete with him. Let me go up to Dallas.
Okay.
And anyway, so I remember this is in 2018, very vividly, the January 1st I was hungover. So January 2nd I started making calls. And
so someone should get started when they're hungover, is what you're saying.
I'm just being honest with you.
If you learn one thing from this podcast.
Violently hungover the first day of the year, and I said, I'm going to have to do this the next day. I
Gotcha.
feel like a bag of burritos right now. So I started making these vacant houses. I started basically taking these like tax delinquent lists, and instead of just calling everyone, I would like take the list and I would use this thing called AccuZip, which is a software. Now there's list stackers. It's the same thing. And I would basically like flag all the vacant houses that were vacant and tax delinquent. So when I would make the call, it was a very calibrated call. I was calling a homeowner or someone who inherited a property that had a vacant property that was behind on their taxes, so they would be more inclined to sell at a discount.
Okay, makes sense.
So I started doing that, and it started working almost immediately. And no one was doing it. It was a complete blue ocean. So maybe 1 out of 6 leads was a deal. So I got a house in Dallas.
And this isn't costing you how much money? Is it
Zero
costing?
money. It was Skip Genie was $50 a month.
Yeah.
My cell phone was free. My parents were paying for it.
Right.
So it was like literally free. And I got this lady. She wanted to sell, and this is my first ever virtual deal. Or no, second ever virtual. I did one in New York where I never met them. No, because I went to that house. But anyway, went to my buddy who I met in Texas at a mastermind, and I said, hey, I have this house. She wants to sell. She can't sign electronically. Do you want to go lock it up and we'll JV at 50-50?
And he was in Texas.
He was in Texas.
Right.
Still a good friend of mine today, Jason. And we split like $18,000 down the middle. And I never saw the house. And then the next week I had another one, $30,000 deal. Split it down the middle, 15-15. Every other week for the next 2.5 years, I was
no overhead.
No overhead. Zero overhead. Within like, probably 120 days, 180 days, I was making 30-40 grand a month.
Yeah.
Like net, like to me, in my bank account exploded. And I'm not saying that to flex. There's a lot of problems that come with that model, but I was literally in college in January living with my parents with like maybe 20 grand in the bank. And by the summer I was living in San Diego, California in UTC, like 10 minutes from here, making $30,000-$40,000 a month with no overhead. And all of a sudden I was like, holy shit, this actually works. 2.5 years later, after like literally beating my head against a wall, I knew that I was eventually going to get this like quote unquote lucky break. It just happened to be virtually in Texas. Before that, whole strategy of cold calling was like, now it's very saturated. It still works, but you have to probably 10x your prospects to get the same results I was getting.
I want to dive into that. So yeah, thank you for sharing that. And I think that like even to that part, like, I mean, I would love to be making 30 grand a month with my wholesaling business and like
no overhead either. If
just
me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And by the way, I was JVing these. If I wasn't JVing these, I would have been making double that.
Yeah. That's
so
great.
like I was giving half that away, but without having to see the house or really do anything.
That's the virtual trade-off a little bit.
Well, now I would not do that, but anyway.
So the approach I took, granted, I'm in Delaware, which is where I lived. So if we have like a little racetrack here and we have Greg Helbeck and he started his journey and we have Tim Uphelt started his journey, both are probably treading water about the same amount.
Yeah.
But Greg, he found, as you said, like a blue ocean. And what does that mean for people who don't know?
A blue ocean is basically a marketplace that's not saturated, but there's still a tremendous amount of opportunity to make money. That's how I would define it.
Makes sense. So
there's a lot of demand in a marketplace, but there's not a lot of competition. That's how I would like properly define a blue ocean.
You found a strategy that, like you said, no one else was doing, and then it allowed you to 10x your results.
It's overnight almost.
I did not find that strategy. Yeah. I did not do cold calling. I don't like talking to people on the phone. I was like, I'm going to do my pay-per-click and like my direct mail. I did what basically, granted, like I have the story about doing online and this and that, but I was at the time doing like the normal direct mail and stuff. And like, treading water for quite a long time. And, I ended up like not blowing up the way that you did. And I think it's really interesting. And for the people listening now are like, well, good for you, Greg. But like you found this like blue ocean strategy that allowed you to make a lot of money. To me, the lesson is like, well, we should all find our own blue ocean to make a lot of money. But like you were saying, it's saturated now. And I can't think of the top of my head any type of marketing strategies that aren't saturated. So what would you tell people getting started? Because the way you got successful was to find a unique strategy no one else was doing at the time. Can people do that now, or what do you recommend for people?
Yeah, they can do it now. It's easier to get the data, but there's going to be more people doing it. So you're just going to have to adjust your expectations, and you're probably going to have to call 2 to 4 times the amount of people to get the same results I was getting. But the key on that strategy on why it is still effective, even, obviously back in the day, like no one was doing it. These deals that I were finding were sellers that basically didn't even think they owned the house. So what I mean by that is like generally the owner was deceased on title. I would find that out, and then I would skip trace the heirs, the relatives, and I would call them and say, hey, would you ever consider selling me your relative's house on Apple Street that's vacant, that hasn't had a tax payment in 2 years? And they would say either yes, no, or I don't think I own that house anymore. And then I'd say, okay, makes sense. I understand why. If I explain to you, and this is it kind of sounded like almost like a scam, but I said, listen, believe it or not, you are the owner because they had no will. If you could get some money out of this house, would that be worth continuing this conversation? And like I've had thousands of these conversations, so I've like perfected it.
Right.
But they were either going to say yes, no, and that's it. And a lot of them would say yes, and I would basically give somebody cash for a house they didn't think they owned, albeit there was liens on the house. So basically they were getting found money that they didn't even expect. So the reason I was making all that money was because I was getting these houses at prices that were unfreaking believable. And we were wholesaling in the beginning, and then we started buying and rehabbing and doing all that stuff. But I was getting houses in Texas for $25,000, $30,000. We're flipping them for 60, 70 grand wholesale. Because I was like the property had $10K in taxes owed. They wanted $5,000 to walk. And then there was like $5,000 in miscellaneous liens. So we're picking up a house for that cheap, flipping them wholesale. And we were probably leaving a little bit of money on the table on the wholesale side. And because we certainly weren't wholesaling the way I wholesale now with my auction system, which I could talk about later. But yeah, it was like crazy, And these owners they didn't really think they owned the house. They didn't want anything to do with the house. And once I showed them that this wasn't some Nigerian scam, they took my offer, and we had a title company, and it was a lot easier doing stuff in Texas compared to New York with these attorneys. So
and you found a partner down
there. If I didn't have him, it would have been a lot harder.
If you chose Wisconsin, would you have found someone in Wisconsin?
I would have found someone in Wisconsin, but I don't know if we could have pulled off the margins in Wisconsin as we did in Texas, just because of the Dallas being a very demanding area.
So you got kind of lucky in a way. You chose a market that happened to be very profitable.
Yes, and I'll also say this. You said the luck thing. I happened to be in that mastermind because I was involved with a guy named John Martinez, who's a sales trainer who happened to plug me into some of his masterminds. But so if I didn't know John, I wouldn't have never met Jason. And if I never met Jason, I probably wouldn't have made the money I made in Texas.
So kind of the perfect storm of like you knew someone who kind of pulled you along.
Pulled me up, helped me kind of introduce me to his network. And then from there I met people and started doing business.
So if you think you never met John, you would not be where you were today? Or do you think you would be?
No, I still would be successful, but I just would have went a different route. That was like the clear path to go down.
Right.
And I would have figured it out because I know me as a person, but it would have been harder for sure.
Gotcha.
And that was, but that's like almost like, well, what is luck when timing meets opportunity, right? Like I at that point, I had some skills, right?
He brought you in for a reason.
Yes, I knew what I was doing exactly, right. And I developed skills. The biggest problem why most real estate entrepreneurs don't succeed in the beginning is because they have no skills. They have no clue how to market and sell. They have no idea what a real estate deal is, which is like how to analyze a property and see what makes sense. So they're basically trying to speak Spanish without knowing the language. But if you understand how to generate leads consistently, you understand how to convert a qualified lead into a customer, and you understand how to monetize that customer via whatever rentals or flips or wholesales, you have real tangible skills that if you drop somebody off with real skills into any market, within 90 days, they're going to have $50,000 in their bank account because they know what they need to do fundamentally to get the results that they're going to get. So like the biggest point I would say is that you need to get really good at the skills that matter. And once you have those skills, no one can ever take those skills away from you. And it's almost like when you get really good at like painting, you can go 3 years without painting. If someone gives you a brush, you have that muscle memory to go paint something magnificent.
That's awesome, dude. I 100% agree with you. And to me, I call that the CEO mindset in a way. And like my philosophy is like you see people jump into like, let's say like Max Maxwell, for instance. Max Maxwell?
Yeah, I've heard good things about him.
Met the guy, he started in like 2018. So even after
He started after us.
He started after both of us.
He's kicking my ass.
He's just kicking your ass, and he's really kicking my ass.
Yeah.
And, where's I going with this? And I'm thinking to myself, like, how can someone like Max get started and have like even more...
Like hockey stick explosive growth.
Right.
Yeah.
And the conclusion I came up with, and I'd love to know if you think this is true, is like, because he was already a successful entrepreneur before he even joined real estate. He was doing other businesses. He had other things going on. So when he, let's say, dropped into a certain market, he already had business skills. He had the marketing, he had the sales, he had operational, like financial, all these other skills of how to run a business.
Yes.
That he was able to be successful quicker versus, people, newbies getting started, they just don't know.
They don't know anything about business.
They don't know anything about business.
They don't know anything about time management.
Exactly.
They're not probably from an entrepreneurial family. I'm not from an entrepreneurial family. So this is all like, my parents thought I was speaking Urdu all day, running around the house, talking about this,
I think it's just so important. I think a lot of people get hung up on like, do my first deal. Like, how do I do the next deal? That's okay, but really, you want to learn how to be a good business person.
Yes.
And like maybe, Greg, like your initial success, like there was some luck and...
There definitely was a little bit of luck involved. I would absolutely agree with you there.
Yeah, I think probably everyone has a little bit of luck. And you were doing a blue ocean strategy that like, not people weren't doing at the time.
No.
But nowadays, people are doing it. And now you're kind of on this similar, like people know about this. There's no special secret sauce that Greg uses anymore. But would you say you're more successful today than you were 4 years ago?
Oh my God, not even a question.
So you got to ask yourself, why is Greg even more successful? Now, it couldn't have just been that blue ocean strategy. Greg understands business. He understands the skills that you need to succeed. And that is why you're successful today, not because of necessarily one.
Yeah, it wasn't a one-hit wonder. No. Right. I started making more money every month after that. Like, I was making good money at the time, and like now the levels that we're at with the deal volume and the profits and like, just looking at my personal net worth and liquidity and all that, like it's not even close to where it was 3-4 years ago when I was making good money in Texas, right? Because the thing is though, after that, what happened was I started doing a lot more deals, right? Like 3 to 4 like real deals a month where we were making big money. Although I was splitting that 50-50, I started saving a ton of money. And then I started taking that money and then actually deploying it back into paid marketing in New York, where we started making even bigger spreads because the margins there are crazy. And I was still making money in Texas, and it just started to snowball. You know what I mean? And then
I went back to New York, even though you got divorced from it, but you came back begging for forgiveness, and it gave you another chance.
Yeah, the reason is because I knew at that point kind of how it worked. I still, when I left New York originally to like go into Texas, I still didn't really know how the mechanics of a deal worked out. But I had I experienced so much in Texas, and I still will do a handful of deals there every year for the most part. But I started saying like, okay, like this is actually how you run direct mail, and this is how you actually like set up a campaign and like have the right expectations and like, you know what I mean? And then that started working out, and I started being able to take deals down and stop wholesaling everything. And that's when I started to make serious cash.
Gotcha.
Because I was like in full control of these houses, and I started rehabbing, and that's a whole nother business. But that's where it really kind of changed for me. And then I was always good with saving money and allocating money when it's made and putting it in certain places and being able to capitalize on opportunities. I think a big thing in real estate, and I know you're going to probably ask me some more questions.
I got him queued up.
I'm rambling here.
I told him beforehand. I was like, Greg, if you ramble, I'm going to interrupt you. But
is being able to it's being able to maximize an opportunity when you have it. Like a lot of wholesalers will get a wholesale deal and they'll give it away for $20,000, which is great. Mm-hmm. But if that same house can make you 60, if you just do a different strategy, same house, same lead, same price, you're going to make 3 times the money on the same house.
The same work,
it might take a little longer, but like you're going to get 3 paychecks versus 1. So you got to know how to do that. That has made a lot of money for me, to say the least.
So to close the loop on the, what separated Greg kind of spiel we've been going on here, what would you say for someone getting started? We've kind of established like they need to know shit. They need to have certain skills.
You have to.
How would you say someone gets started? Is it mentorship? Is it books? Is it experience? Like, what would you tell someone to do to learn as quickly as possible?
It's a good question. I would say what you should do, and I actually did this too, is you should get really good at one thing. In my opinion, it's generating leads in the beginning, whether that's doing like online lead stuff, like getting good at PPC or getting good at SEO, which is going to take some more time, or honestly, going in and driving for dollars and finding 2,000 shitty houses in your area.
Yeah.
If you find 2,000 shitty houses, there's 50, 60, 70 grand there waiting for you to take it, honestly, because they're just the math works out. Or, like I said, getting good at cold calling, getting good at text message marketing, getting good at mail. You have to pick one channel and you have to commit to mastering it over a 6 to 12 month timeline.
Why is that? Why don't I just do a little bit of everything like so many people
Because
do?
You're not going to know. If you do a little bit of everything, you're not going to learn that channel well enough to know why it's successful or why it's not successful. You're just going to think it's like, oh, I texted people and no one wanted to sell. How many texts did you send? Oh, 2,000? Well, I need to send 30 in San Diego to get a deal. So we're 28K off, So if you don't do one thing long enough, you're not going to know why it worked or why it didn't work.
And you talked about in the beginning that basically when you need to choose one channel and have that constant improvement mindset.
Yeah.
You go into it saying, hey, maybe I'm going to screw up in the beginning, but I'm going to learn from it.
Yes.
I'm going to work on it. And then
Yes.
don't give up on it. Don't do shiny object. Don't give up. Focus on that one channel. And that mindset and that focus should be able to get you across the finish line. Right?
And you're going to have a real skill. You're going to have a real skill after that. And like, especially once you start running profitable ad campaigns, you're like, oh crap, I just spent $5,000 and that 5 turned into 20. And I just got a 4-to-1 return on my ad spend. Now, what if I take another $5,000 from the 20K I just made and go duplicate that? And when you see like patterns of success repeat themselves, you can reverse engineer why they worked. And then when you see a pattern of success that you thought was going to work, not work, you can try to pinpoint where the problem might have been and then fix the root cause and see if you get a different outcome. What's thinking like a CEO? It's not, you can't just think like, because some jerk off online is talking about like, send 500 text messages for free and get your first deal. Like, it's just not, that's a marketing pitch to get someone to buy a product. Well, I'm sure the product would work, but that's not how you run a real business.
You can get a deal or not.
You could get lucky, and even a blind squirrel will find a nut.
But you won't find the next deal.
Yeah, you're going to be starving for the next one. Like that's like some of the. I'm actually glad it took me 9 months to get my first deal actually, because I didn't know what I was doing, and if I hit a home run my first deal, I would have been jaded, and I would have thought that my shit didn't stink, and I would have been like, oh, I'm the best real estate entrepreneur ever. And I'm glad it took me some time to actually get started, because I had to really actually like pay my dues and learn the damn skills to actually get paid every month.
I love that, man. I love that. And I'm no exception to this rule. Like, thinking about my story, for me, my cold calling was pay-per-click. Like, that is something that I dove into. And once you have a skill, that there's value in the market. And I decided to use my skill to create a PPC agency, right? I didn't have to do that. I could have done 5 different other business models, but I chose to do that one. But it's because I had value there, and it's successful because I had value because I worked in.
And you know what you're doing. If someone dropped you off in the middle of Kansas or something and said, "Tim, go get me some leads on Google,"
I could do it.
You could do it.
I could do it. 100%.
Tangible skill, yeah,
absolutely. So
they don't teach that stuff in school, man.
They do not teach it, and I want to jump a little bit, and I want to talk about your business model. I think it's really interesting here.
Love to talk about that.
And so currently, you're doing deals in San Diego and Texas, mainly.
San Diego and New York.
And New York. Why did I say? Okay. Yeah.
Texas, I've done. That's where I did a lot of my deals, like in the, like probably 2-3 year mark in my business.
Okay.
But then I pulled out of there because that channel didn't start. It wasn't working as well, so I pivoted, which is another big thing.
You were learning, and the data came back, and you pivoted.
Yes.
And if Texas, or I keep saying Texas, if New York, something happens there, you'll pivot again.
Yeah.
If you have to.
100%.
100%. Yeah. So, to me, like, San Diego is not. You don't have to be in San Diego. Yeah, you live here, but like, it's a tough market. I live in San Diego, and I don't do any deals in San Diego.
Very hard market.
And New York's also a hard market. So you've established that you can, spin the globe and pick a spot and get deals there. Why are you choosing Southern California and New York to do deals in?
Yeah. So the Northeast, New York, New Jersey, Connecticut is where I do the majority of my business. San Diego, I've done, I think, 5 properties, or this is my 5th property I'm working right now. But the margins in San Diego, I mean, I had one this year, $70K assignment fee. I have one right now that's in escrow, $71,000 assignment fee. Had one a couple months ago. I did virtually in San Diego, $55,000 assignment fee. The spreads here are so big. When you do get a deal, it's worth it because your wholesale fee or your flip profit is going to be usually 4 to 5x what it would be in a regular market. So it's worth fighting for.
Okay, so I want to view this conversation with the CEO lens on it. Okay, so we're talking about ROI here, like marketing ROI.
Yes,
right?
yes.
So you're saying like they have big margins, and that's true. But how much does it cost to get a deal in San Diego?
So with text message marketing alone, it costs about $6,000 in data and software subscriptions and probably VA's time. Yeah, about $6,000 in text marketing. That's about it's about 40,000 text messages if you want to get into the nitty gritty.
So you're spending 6 to make on average like 60. Would you say
50? Let's call it 50. Just to be.
So that's what 9, almost 8.5, just 8.5 times on your money. That's very good.
It's a very good return.
That's crazy good.
Yeah.
Okay, so because I'm thinking to myself, like, my market in Delaware only cost me $2,000 to get a deal.
That's awesome.
maybe 2,500.
Yeah.
I'm making 10 per deal.
Yeah.
So my ROI is like on average 4 times. So you're actually, just by the return on investment from a marketing perspective, yours is performing better. It makes sense to do it. So, I mean, and that's surprising to me how you get deals so cheap. Do you think that San Diego is specifically like you can get 8 times on your money? Is it, could you do your system in Texas or in Montana?
At scale, it'd be hard. And like San Diego is I know a few guys who do volume here, but it's the more you spend out here, your ROI returns just goes down, because there's just, you're gonna run into where your cost basis is so high, and your margins will stay the same. But like, if you're spending like $900K a month on marketing, you're not gonna 9x that ad spend. You're gonna probably 3x that ad spend.
Right.
But then your operations are gonna be swamped, because you're going to have all these files you're working.
You're going to have a whole team under you.
It's very hard to scale volume in a tough market, because you have a lot of overhead coming out the door, and then you have a lot of like operational efficiencies you need to figure out, because if you have 10, 15 houses a month going on, that's a lot of moving parts, a lot of title companies and all that stuff, attorneys. So in San Diego, I like the low volume, high spread game. You know what I mean? Like, I probably do a deal every other month out here, and the spreads are big. I'm going to do more deals out here now that I'm settling down here again. I kind of bounced around for a little bit. But in New York, to speak more specifically on that, because I've spent a lot more money in media in New York, it cost me like $7,000 to buy a house off direct mail in New York, but our average profit is about 30. So
you're spending
that's
almost the same
amount,
as you are out here, though.
But it's a lot easier to get more deals in New York than in San Diego, because San Diego, you have to speak to more sellers. You have to get more leads. It's not like plug and play. New York is like every 30 leads we're buying a house, no matter what. San Diego, it could fluctuate a little bit more because it's expensive. It
really the variable is the operational side of things.
Yes.
Right? It's like, because they don't talk about this enough.
No.
Because people are like, okay, well, if you're looking at the numbers, Greg, you're spending 6 to make 30 in New York, and you're spending 6 to make 50 in San Diego. Me, like, duh, I'm just going to drop New York and put all in San Diego. But when you think about, like, actually, this is a business here, there's more factors at play. Okay, well, to spend that much, it's a different market. You're going to need to have a different operational setup.
Oh, yeah, and exactly. Your systems have to be.
That's the reason why you're not all in San Diego.
Yeah, and I'm not comfortable with the risk that would imply if I were to just dump my New York business and just pump into San Diego, because I have mouths to feed now. I have a small team. Right. I got a sales guy. I got an assistant. I don't want to just say, let's burn the boats in New York and go all into San Diego, because that lag time just to start getting like consistently profitable in San Diego would be 90 to 120 days of cash out the door until we know we have some predictability. New York, we have so much momentum in that market, and I have thousands and thousands and thousands of leads, and I own properties all over the place there. Right. It's a lot easier to push a boulder that's already going downhill versus trying to push it from the beginning.
Which is basically people who are like have gotten your postcard a year ago and are following up.
Oh, yeah,
that's the
insane.
Momentum you're talking about.
It's insane, yeah. And I know the marketing is more forgiving in New York than it is in San Diego. San Diego, the spreads are phenomenal.
The risk is higher, though.
The risk is higher. New York, the spreads are good. Actually, the spreads are great. But I know I'm more comfortable spending a lot of marketing money in New York, because mostly it's done through direct mail, and that's a very set it and forget it channel. Once the mail is out, the calls are coming in, and we know our systems. So, like, we're spending about $7,000 in direct mail, but we're going to make, for an example, I'll give you like a real, this is factual. So one of our direct mail campaigns that I wrapped up last year, I believe I ended up spending about $20,000, and we pulled in like $150 in revenue on one direct mail campaign.
That's awesome.
Which is phenomenal.
Yeah.
Right? And that was over the course of like 12 months.
Yeah.
Right. So like, I knew that was going to happen, because all you need it doesn't matter what media, if you're doing mail or pay-per-click, if you know what your break even is, your basis, let's say it's $10,000, and you know 1 out of 30 leads is going to be a deal over time, if you wait long enough and you still get leads in, you're going to be profitable, because it's math. And Trevor does a good job talking about this with like
averages,
averages. Yeah, exactly.
You can't pick the month you're going to make the money, but
it's going to average out over time. And that's why like with our business, like our conversion rate is much better now, because we're getting a lot of leads from follow-up, which were originally unconverted leads, but now that they're converted leads, it just makes our math a lot better, and we can justify spending more money.
Gotcha. Okay.
But this stuff they don't teach you about. This is just I could be selling pens, right? But I'm just happen to be in real estate. You know what I mean?
Right. It's business operations, basically.
Yeah, exactly. It's scaling marketing, basically.
Would it be safe to say that there's hundreds of markets out there in the United States. At any time, you could wake up in the morning and say, I'm going to choose a new market to go into today. You could wake up every morning. But if I'm Greg, the decision making that goes on in my head, would it be safe to say it's mainly, well, what is the operational, let's say, headache and the risk? The risk being marketing, financial, time to get your money back risk, operational risk, unknown market risk. Would you say those would be the most important factors for you when determining if someone said, Greg, I need you to pick a new market out of all 50 states? Those are the things you would consider.
I've been thinking about doing this in another area, primarily to buy rentals, and I'm still kind of figuring out the mental maps for that. But yeah, to answer your question, it would come down to, number one, how much money can I realistically spend every month for the next 6 months without expecting to make any money? Number two, what is the realistic exit strategy look like on a lot of these properties, aka can we wholesale them profitably, or are we going to have to take a lot of them down? And if we're taking a lot of them down, which just means closing on the house, how are we exiting? Are we going to burr them and keep them as rentals? If that's the case, how are we going to get our marketing money back? Are we going to have to wholesale it to ourselves to kind of recycle our capital and keep the operation flowing? Because this is more of I'm kind of rambling here, and then at the same time, who's going to be on the ground? I need an A1 realtor, I need an A1 home inspector, I need an A1 title company, I need an A1 attorney, and I need probably an A1 property management company to take these rentals and move them on to. So it would really come down to the operations, and then also how saturated is that market? How much money am I going to have to spend in advertising to get a deal? And are there 10 other investors trying to hump that same list? So I would look at that too, and I wouldn't shy away if it's competitive, but I would just know going in that this is a hot market.
It's part of the risk calculation.
Need to double our conversion. We're going to have to double our leads to get the same conversions.
You factor in the margin. You're like, okay, well, it's kind of a little bit napkin math. We're going to double it because there's more risk. Yes. But the numbers need to work with the napkin math for you to even consider going.
The numbers would have to work. Exactly. And I have to figure out what the first thing I would measure for is how much is it going to cost me to get a deal with direct mail, and how many leads do I need to get a deal. Those are the first two KPIs I'd measure for. Because once I know that, I can scale it. Once I know that, it's easier to scale it, because then it's just a factor of when you know how much it costs to get a customer. When you basically know what your gross margin is going to be, then you can back out the operations. Because if I know I'm spending 6 to make 20, and my gross margin is 14, now I can reverse engineer my operations to put a team together to where how do we make sure we net X amount of dollars next year with this overhead that we're basically committing to. And then you can kind of see if that model makes sense. And I also want to look at the rental side, because I don't want to just flip houses. I want to keep rentals too now.
Okay, that's a whole other conversation.
That's a whole other conversation. Yeah.
What would you say for someone who's flipping wholesaling would be, after factoring everything, a good profit margin for their business?
Percentage?
Percentage.
Depends how big they are. Probably if they're doing less than $500,000 a year, probably 50%, 45%.
Okay.
Because then you're not going to have a lot of overhead, most likely.
And that includes paying yourself, or doesn't include paying yourself?
Nah, paying yourself is a little kind of fudgy.
Right.
Maybe if you're paying yourself 40%.
Yeah.
35. No, 40%. 35. You're blowing. You're probably going out to eat too much.
Okay.
But if you have a bigger business, probably 35%. If you're over 7 figures.
Gotcha. And how big is your team right now?
Me, Brett, and an assistant. So there's 3 of us.
You, sales guy, and assistant.
Me, Brett. He deals with making offers and stuff like that, and then Anna does lead processing, and she does a lot of media stuff for me. She does the podcast stuff. Gotcha.
I see people you've been in the game a while. Yeah. There are people, a lot of gurus out there. Maybe Sean Terry is one. I don't know what Sean Terry's doing, but let's just use him as
he's a good guy. He's a real good guy.
Sean, okay. Yeah. He has good stuff. I have nothing against Sean Terry.
He actually helped me get started virtually through his podcast, because I would be driving around putting bandit signs out fuck, is this going to work? And he's man. Just do it,
It's who you know. That's another lesson. It's who you know, meet these people. But everyone knew that already, right? What was I going to say?
Gurus promoting real estate businesses. Kind of flashy stuff, I guess. Kind of people promoting business in a box kind of stuff. Yes. That's where you're going.
Here's what I was going to say. So there's people like Sean Terry, they have big businesses.
Big businesses.
Big, and they're doing I just spent $100,000 this month in marketing, and we hear that all the time.
Yeah.
And I'm always curious about what people's business models look like. And that's a common business model where they're probably covering the country or a region of the country.
Yeah.
He's probably in at least 4 or 5 states.
Yeah.
And they're doing a similar thing, but those people, they have a big team. They don't have a Greg Helbeck team. They have 8 to 12 people on their team, probably, if not more.
Yeah.
And they're running a company. They have an HR person probably at that point.
It's a scaled model. Yeah.
Yeah, and their profit margins are probably 20%. Probably 25. Yeah, right.
Hopefully 30, but 25.
Right. So it's just a different business model. Not one is better than the other, but on the spectrum of, Sean Terry, let's do 10 million a year, or solo guy doing big deals. Where are you right now, and where do you want to be on that spectrum of business models?
I'm more in the middle. Like, I'm not nearly doing $10 million a year. I'll just be honest with you. There's maybe 2 or 3 guys I know who are doing $10 million a year in deals. I mean,
but would you want that? Would you want that though?
I would. If I would do that, I would have no problem with that number if I knew that I'm profitable and I'm netting multiple 7 figures from that 10 million. And number 2, I can still put the same amount of reasonable effort that I'm putting in today, where like I can run that business to where I'm not talking to sellers. Because if I'm doing 10 million a year, there's no way I'm talking to sellers. Because it's too big to do that.
And you'd be cool though, like you'd be doing same effort but maybe different. Like you'd be doing
different activities,
leadership things,
exactly.
whatever. But you'd be
I would be cool with that.
Okay.
Yeah, I would be totally cool with that. I think actually that honestly adds more security to any business because you have more revenue, you have more capital. I look at it more like, what is the business going to make for you? And if I'm making $10 million a year, which I'm not, disclaimer, this is not one of these like crazy marketing
I wouldn't
schemes.
be able to bring him on the podcast if he was making $10 million a year.
I want to make sure, what am I really going to net? And if I'm netting $3 million a year out of that, that's a lot of money for me to save that for a couple of years and probably never have to work again.
Gotcha.
And then, but at the same time, if I'm doing that type of volume, I'm picking up rentals every month. I mean, I'm never working again in 3-4 years in terms of like my wealth.
You wouldn't have to, at least.
You'd be set.
You could move to Costa Rica today and probably never work again. But
that would be kind of boring though. I'd be pretty bored.
So what's the next step for Greg, like with the business? What do you want to do?
7-figure net income. That's my like next thing I'm tackling. Like 7-figure net income is like the big thing I've been trying to crack for the last year.
Why do you think you haven't already gotten there already?
I haven't spent enough money in marketing.
Why is that?
Because I'm too scared.
It's a risk.
Being honest with you.
Do you think it's the barrier is you need to be riskier with your money?
No, I think what I really need to do is hire a consultant who's already done that and be like, what do I need to do to get to that level?
You don't know what you don't know, right?
Yeah, I don't know what I don't know.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's like I feel like a little foolish to do that blind. I feel like I could figure it out potentially, and I feel like I'm starting to get to where like I can. So that's my answer. I want to be netting net 7-figure income, like $1 million a year net earner. Because everyone's like, I grossed X. It's like, what did you take home, right? What is your net worth? What's your liquidity look like? How do you look like on a balance sheet? What kind of debt do you have? But the biggest thing I look at from like a goal like that is like, if I'm netting $1 million a year and my living expenses are $40,000 a year and I'm paying some taxes on that, not a lot, hopefully, because I have rentals, how many years do I have to do that to where like I have enough money to never have to work again? Not because I don't want to work, but like enough money to be like, okay, this is legitimately optional now. You know what I mean?
And that number's different for everybody as well.
But no one really thinks about that. They're just trying to do more deals to impress their cousin or something. Like, I don't really give a shit. You know what I mean? Like, I live a reasonable lifestyle. I'm not like living high on the hog for the most part. I pretty reasonable with how I spend money. I track all the money I spend. I have some nice things. I have nice watches. I have a nice car. I live in a very nice house that I rent, disclaimer. But, I'm not just like going out to the club every weekend and being Billy Big Baller. That just wouldn't, like, I wouldn't enjoy that. And I would feel like I'm doing myself a disservice and I'm robbing from my future self. Even if I was making like crazy money, I just feel like that's not me.
It's not you. Yeah.
No.
Awesome, man. That makes sense. So, I wanted to go on this other spiel. I mean, we're almost at an hour here. I know probably...
We still got some time, dude. We're not even at the 50-minute mark.
That's true. Yeah, you can have some... Okay, so I'm happy to talk about... The only other thing I want to talk about, we can talk about other things that you want to bring up.
Talk about whatever you want, yeah.
The social media stuff.
Oh, yeah. I'd love to talk about that.
So, as you guys know, I'm anti... I don't want to say anti-social media, but kind of anti-social media. You know, like, I'm very skeptical.
Anti-flexing.
Anti-misleading and anti-out of context.
I think that's fair.
Yeah.
I like that.
And I have my iPad here, and I'm going to just pull up a couple. He agreed to this beforehand, so I'm not, this isn't blind, but we're pulling up a couple of Greg Helbeck's YouTube videos here that they're not even from you. So, but we have here how to make $100K a month in virtual wholesaling with Greg.
Yes.
Okay, we have...
I've done that.
Okay.
Yes.
We have how Greg made $101,000 flipping one house,
I've done that.
which you did tell me about that.
That is true.
Sizing up motivated sellers.
I'm very good at that.
Boost your negotiation skills, which you're also
Extremely good at that. I can say that with confidence.
So for me, I'm just curious. Like, I like to get to the bottom of things. Do you feel like any of the content that maybe people have used, that you're in or whatnot, these are from obviously other people, are they misleading at all? Do you feel like everything that you talk about or is talked about around you is 100% accurate, or do you think there's things that people need to watch out for at all?
I think the videos regarding myself, I think, are all above board because I've literally done everything on these videos. There's no like crazy ass titles that are like tomfoolery. I'm just like double checking to make sure there's nothing here that's crazy. I think with the content that I've put out, whether it's my podcast or guests that I've been on a show on, I've been clear on being transparent. So I would say on my end, to be all honest with you, I think everything here looks pretty kosher. To answer your broader question, by the way, I don't do 100 G's a month every month. That is, I've done it many times, but I've not done it every single month in perpetuity since I started. So that,
you haven't necessarily mastered how to make 100.
No,
how to net 100
every month, not every month.
It says a month. It doesn't say every month.
Yes,
there's
exactly.
The title.
Yeah.
It doesn't say how to make
a month. So I have definitely done that. Yes, I have done that for sure. And the 6-figure deals, that's something I specialize in.
Gotcha. Okay.
But to answer your question, I think a lot of information online is very misleading, just to be upfront with you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is not. It doesn't give you the real picture. Mm-hmm. And a lot of it is because people talk about their gross numbers and their like deal volume. The deal volume is the number one thing that gets me aggravated. Or like specifically got X amount of properties under contract.
I got 25 properties under contract.
I have had months where I've gotten 8 properties under contract and we've closed fucking 0 because there was title issues or the seller was a meth head or whatever. So like That's a misleading stat. I think a lot of stuff on social media is very negative for people. Very negative. I think
That's surprising to hear because you're all over social media.
I know. Well, I'm just being. This is the I got to be upfront with people podcast here. Yeah. So I think a lot of it is negative. I'm not saying the stuff that I have out, in my opinion, I think is very good information. But I think some people put things out that is not the whole picture. And I feel like I understand I'm a marketer, so I understand why. And I think that if their true intention is to help and serve, I approve it. But if it's like a misleading tomfoolery kind of like, let me get them while the getting's good, I don't like that. I don't think that's the right thing to do. I think ultimately that'll catch up to whoever it would be. There's no names or anything like that. We're not like individually scrutinizing people. But I think the way that this business is perceived is not great. I think especially now as we're recording this, it's 2021. This is a very hot topic, real estate entrepreneuring, real estate investing, even being a broker. And I think that a lot of the marketing that this business gets perceived on is it's true, but not 100% true, if that makes sense. When I say it's true, like I got started flipping houses when I was 20 years old. They were selling the dream. They were talking about how you could make $20,000 double closing real estate with no money. And I've done that so many times I can't even count. Like I'll do deals in California with literally no money down.
Yeah.
I know what I'm doing, but like I'll put no escrow deposit in and I'll make $50K at signing a contract. Right. So technically that's a no money down deal. I could have been a knuckle dragging Neanderthal. I could have slithered into the title company and got a contract and but the fact of the matter is though, like if you don't know what you're doing, you don't have skills, you're not going to make 50 grand. You got to freaking know what you're doing. And that takes time, consistent persistence. It's like working out at the gym. If you buy a fitness program and you work out once, why are you going to blame the program? Like you didn't do the work. But some of these products in our business that get marketed, they make it seem like it's easy and they make it seem like it's effortless, and it's the complete opposite. It's very difficult. It's not effortless. This business is a shitload of work. You need to know what you're doing. And the thing is, if you were to market something saying, it's very hard, you're going to get reamed at with sellers, your PPC campaign is going to shit the bed, and the attorney's going to call you about sending a postcard, no one's going to buy that shit. Who would want to buy something that's hard?
An info course or something.
Yeah. It's like, do you want to get sued by a seller and have a list pendants on your property and get hosed up and be in court paying legal fees? Like, no.
Right.
But do you want to make $20,000 getting an off-market property from a grandma?
Right.
I'm not taking advantage of grandmas, by the way.
Yeah.
That's a whole other topic. But I think a lot of that information online is tough. It's tough. It's tough because it doesn't paint the entire picture of the reality of this business.
And I think and it gets people in. What's the downside of that? So let's say someone getting started. What's the downside of not understanding how things should or actually are?
The downside is that they won't. They might really. And the downside is that this business, quite frankly, it could be for everyone. I genuinely believe that anybody with desire and the right information, fortunately it's free online now, can be successful in this business if they really want it, because I was one of those people. And that is true. Anyone can be successful, but not everyone will be successful, because most people don't have the right reasons and mindset to get started, and they don't really want to do this business. They might think they want to do this business, but when they get chewed out on the phone for the 5th time, they're probably going to punt. And their perception was that it's going to be easy, and then when they find out it's very difficult, maybe they were misled by some sort of guru selling some sort of program.
So maybe the harm is maybe someone bought a course they probably shouldn't have.
Yes, they probably shouldn't have. However, I will say the gurus that I know that I'm friends with are very, very genuine, and they definitely are not full of crap. There's some, in any industry, there's charlatans out there, but the people that I know who make a lot of money in information are very straight up people. But I think when it comes down to buying a course, to like kind of go really into that, I think if you're spending like $500 on a course and it doesn't work out, I think that's kind of like a slap on the wrist. I don't think that's a big deal. But the problem I have in this industry is, like, if there's a guru coming to town charging $50,000 for a lady who's on unemployment and she has no money and she's taking out a line of credit to go learn how to rehab houses for $50,000, and she ultimately is not a fit and she gets manipulated to spending $50,000, that could wipe her out forever.
Those big money programs.
Yeah, I got a problem with that. I think that's taking advantage of somebody, but I think if they're the wrong person. But if someone's buying a course for $500, I mean, I could spend $500 at the grocery store if I get filet mignon or something. That's really nothing to sneeze over. But, $50,000 getting in debt like that, I think that's a little unethical.
Gotcha. And even like for myself, like I've been thinking, and you've been telling me this, that I should make a PPC course, and
well, why not?
And I am gonna do it. But like I've been, I don't know, struggling with like how I want to market it, because I could sit here and say, hey, how to have a successful online business, or how to make $100K with PPC, and like I can do these things. I can do these things with some people, but I haven't been able to do it with every single person like 100%. There's a lot of variables, so it's like, how much do I say, hey, this can be successful, but disclaimer, PSA, or it's tough.
I think I have an answer for you. That's a good question. I'm glad you brought that up. So number one, you cannot take responsibility for your potential client's ability to not execute something. If you know deep down inside what you're doing is actually going to make money, and yet you're disclosing that it's not a get-rich-quick scheme, and you're not going to, choke your chicken and make money 10 minutes later or something like that, like if you know that your information is good and it can help people, you shouldn't feel bad if someone buys it and they don't get the results, because you know that if they actually did the work, they would get the results. And number two, like if you have some sort of like guarantee, or you market it a certain way where it's like, this is not for this, and like they read and they understand that like this is not a get rich quick scheme, you got to know what you're doing, there's skills, and they still buy it and they still don't succeed, it's on them, man. I'm a big self-responsibility guy, assuming you're not charging $100,000 for the course or something. Like it's like, it's a total, I think it's on the customer. Like I sell some consulting, I sell some high-end sales training stuff for people who are already doing business. This is not a pitch for that. And I charge a lot of money. I'm not cheap. If someone wants to consult with me, it's $1,000 an hour. And, I'm not going to, if I consult with somebody for $1,000 an hour and they don't do what I told them to do, I'm not going to feel bad. Because you know what I mean? Because I know that them paying me $1,000 an hour, they're going to get like $100,000 of like value and strategies. So like, to them, it's for me, I'm like, that's a bargain. Like I'd paid consultants tons of money, because I want to figure out, I'm in masterminds, I'm paying tons of money to get to the next level. So
I also pay a coach $1,000 a month.
Yeah. I mean, you know what I mean? And so I think it's all about, I think with marketing, how to market something without it being manipulative. And if you're upfront about it and people know, like, and trust you, then there's no reason to make some money giving some info out.
It is enticing. Like for me, there's nothing stopping me. Like when I'm sitting down on my computer, like brainstorming marketing copy, there's no one holding me accountable. at all.
I hold you accountable when you text me sometimes, and I'm, hey, this sounds fucking salesy.
Well, it happened last week.
I fucking call you out.
I sent you something, and I was like, hey, Greg,
motherfucker, this sounds real salesy. You sound like a guru hustler.
You didn't say motherfucker at the time. But
I didn't say that.
But okay, if I didn't have to text you. Okay. Maybe things that I think are really shitty I won't text you about, right?
Well, I'm just being honest with you.
No, I appreciate it. But my point I'm trying to make is that like there are no necessarily checks and balances. Like no one's going to fact check my claims.
Regulations. Yeah.
No one's going to fact check. I could say this PPC is going to make you $1 million, and there's really like it's only my matter of sleeping at night. There's no one's going to fact check. No one's going to look at my tax returns. You have to trust that I'm not going to do that, and that's why credibility is important. Yeah. But yeah. Anyway, like how do you think someone like who, let's say, wants to buy a course or just even absorbing information day after day, if they want to listen to like one podcast, I do endorse Greg. He is a real guy. I haven't looked at his tax returns, but I do believe him. I know he goes in and out of the deals he's doing. But how would somebody who wants to get started, how do you think they could filter out some of like the good gurus and the bad ones, etc.?
You got to make sure the guru is actually doing some business. They might not be doing like they might make half their money in info and half their money in real estate, which is totally cool. You got to make sure they're in the business still doing deals, and you got to find a way to figure that out. You know, if you're going to spend some sort of money, you got to make sure they are, whether they're selling a lead gen course, are they actually generating leads, right? Or are they just selling something that was like, repackaged or whatever.
Right.
Second thing is if you're buying information or just consuming information, I would rather listen to one course 10 times and be a master at it than buy 5 courses and have my head up my ass. You know what I mean? So like there's a book I'm listening to right now called 100 Million Offers. I'm going to study this book. I'm going to, like, once it's over on Audible on the way home, I'm going to replay the damn thing.
Yeah.
Because that's how you get good at things, is by repetition, and then you can connect the dots, So I would go through a course 3 or 4 times, pick out what are the 1 to 2 things I'm going to execute this quarter, and then how am I going to measure my execution on the things I have control over, aka my effort and my money I'm spending, and the things I don't have control over, the results that I'm getting in terms of maybe leads or revenue or whatever you're measuring for. But you got to be able to really take all the information that you're getting, whether it's free or paid, and figure out how are you going to actually execute that, so you can track your effort back and say, this course, this podcast, this book gave me the information for me to get that result, and I made X amount of dollars, and I can justify that time or money investment. Versus
saying, you kind of loosely go through it, and then maybe it works a little bit, not really, and then you go on to the next thing.
Yeah,
that's you say, this course didn't work.
Yeah.
No,
I've done that before. Everyone's done that.
I've done that.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And anything will work if you work. You know what I mean? Even if you have some shit course on how to, do door hangers or something that isn't that popular. If you do 10,000 door hangers, like I say, a blind squirrel will find a nut. You'll get a house, It's assuming you're not like a complete creep, like you should get a house.
Right.
It's math,
Right.
But yeah, I mean, you got to have your head on straight though. I think a lot of, like I said earlier, this business can be for everyone. Like anyone can be successful in this business, but not everyone will be successful. That's the facts, right? That's why 100 people sign up for a course, 10 people buy, 2 people make money. The 8 people just probably didn't want it that bad. Mm-hmm. We live in a very free society where you can start from the bottom and work your way up, no matter what skin color you are or whatever, you're male, female. You can find a way to make it happen in this business. I know tons of people, all different backgrounds, ethnicities, and they are millionaires, So you got to really want it, and you got to make sure that you're willing to fight the good fight, because it's a hard fight. And, the more successful you get, the more problems you end up getting, and you have to get better at solving different problems.
What do you think, we'll wrap it up here in a minute, what do you think is the hardest part of this business for you now?
I think it's being able to live with uncertainty in terms of right now we have $450,000 in our pipeline. That sounds like a headline, but that's also hey, this is our revenue and this is how we're going to make money. Let's protect this pipeline, and there's no certainty in this pipeline until the wire hits my account. It could
all fall apart.
Yes, in theory it could, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mathematically it probably
So
won't.
being able to live with that uncertainty has been tough, especially now that I have people who work with me. And being able to have a strategy for if something doesn't work out, how do you pivot? How do you get back to where you were?
Because now you have someone else relying on you as well. If these deals fall apart, if you don't perform, you're
I'm still paying people. Yeah. I mean, if it's a commission deal, it's different. But even him, I'm not going to he's not going to starve. I'm going to make sure he's okay, and my assistant's still going to get paid. So I think just living with uncertainty. And like, let's say I had $10 million in the pipeline. It would be the same thing. I'd probably have more zeros in my bank account, but it's the same thing. Any business owner who says they have it all figured out is full of shit. They're full of shit. And they're, I'm crushing it. No, you're probably doing pretty well compared to the average person, but you're probably some shit at night that's making you, not go to sleep too early or too late.
Yeah.
You're probably up at night, and everyone has these problems. Not everyone, everyone might make it seem like they don't have a problem, but like there's a lot of uncertainty in entrepreneurship. The thing I love about entrepreneurship is because you can somewhat control your income, so therefore you can control your savings and your liquidity, so you can technically not have to do anything and then buy assets. But yeah, any business, there's tons of uncertainty, there's tons of risk. You have crazy shit that happens every day with attorneys and potential lawsuits, and like I have tenants who are nuts, and we have crazy lawyers dealing with tenants. It's nuts, but like, so the uncertainty thing is something that is definitely tough now. But I'm learning to like look at it like, this uncertainty is me just being able to get to the next level of my entrepreneurial career. So when I have bigger problems, I know how to solve them. Because if I can't solve the little problems, how the hell am I going to solve the big problems? Like last year I had this debacle. We'll end with this, I guess, if you want. I know we're getting to the hour, but I had a shitload of deals in limbo. This is right towards the end of the calendar year. We had a big one in San Diego, 70,000. We had a big one in New York. We had a rehab I was doing. They were like gut rehab, like gutted the thing to the studs. And we had all like made $200,000 of revenue. It all ended up working out. But I had this uncertainty thing going on for a month or two, and it was driving me crazy. And I was able to get through it and come up with a strategy. Some of those things were out of my control, but I was able to get through that and get to the next level. So now every time you have a set of problems, you got to understand like this is a test for me to get to the next level. Because if I can't handle this problem, how the hell am I going to have 100 rentals? How the hell am I going to have 10 employees? If I can't handle 2 employees, what the hell makes me think I can have 10 employees? So it's almost like little tests. You have to pass those tests. That's what I would say.
Trevor said on in passing, CEO of Carrot, he said on an Instagram story, and it stuck with me. He said some quote from somebody, I don't know who it was, but he said, the level of your success is directly related to the amount of stress that you can handle.
Oh my God, that is very true.
And I have experienced that. Like even for me, my income potentially could be double what it was last year. I'm not doing crazy high numbers, but I've very painfully worked on my stress management skills, my ability to deal with uncertainty and swim in that pool of uncertainty. And that has probably been the best return on my own investment that I've made, is dealing with my own ability to deal with stress and anxiety. Yeah. And it can be very difficult to do and painful, but you got to do it if you want to get to the next level.
It's very hard.
It's going to be stressful. There's literally, I think a lot of people get in this business with the goal of wanting a stress-free life. I want X amount of dollars. I want to peace out. I want to move to the beach. We live at the fucking beach. Like you and me are like, I'm 5 minutes of road from the beach.
Yeah, I literally live at the fucking beach.
You live, I
literally live at the fucking coast. I live on the fucking beach. Literally, the 101 is my street.
Dude, but life is not perfect all the time.
I don't even go to the fucking beach because I don't give a shit. Because I'm too busy fucking doing deals.
Yeah. But it's
a fact.
Your problems didn't go away because
they came back with a vengeance.
Even more problems.
Way more problems.
The people who are doing deals and successful probably actually have more stress than the people not doing any deals. Exactly. So you got to ask yourself, if you really want success, ask yourself why. If you're chasing a stress-free, problem-free life,
don't start a fucking business. I'll tell you that.
It's going to bite you in the ass. Don't start a business. It bit me in the ass. Like I got to a point where I was expecting happiness and easy life, and I got the opposite, and it kind of fucked me up. So just know, like, if you're going to be successful, there is a trade-off. You're going to have to deal with stress, and that's why people don't want to start businesses, because they don't want to deal with it.
Yes.
You're willing to deal with it. I'm willing to deal with it. So any final words you have, Greg? Here has been great having you on.
Dude, I love doing these like live podcasts. I thought you asked some really thought-provoking questions, and hopefully this show was able to kind of paint a more realistic, stroke on the reality of this business. If people want to follow me, go on Instagram, Grego_37, or email me, greg@velocityhousebuyers.com. That's VELOCITYHOUSEBUYERS.com. And just fighting the good fight, man. I really appreciate you having me on, and this is going to help a lot of people. I have a really good feeling about it.
Appreciate it, man. You take it easy.
Thanks, bro.